Namaste and in la catch, and welcome to another apocalyptic chat. You're going to stick around for this one with Terri Jay, who is a cowgirl shaman, among other things. She's a healer, a practitioner, a telepath, a medium, and she's got some amazing stories to tell and some really good insight and wisdom as to how you can apply certain things in your own life. So stick around. Like, share, and subscribe, please. And thank you very much. And don't go away. We'll be right back.
Explore the thoughtless sphere. Embark on a life-changing journey of self-discovery. Embrace harmony with self, with others, with Earth. One world in a new world. Zen Benefiel skillfully ignites conversations, guiding guests to reveal personal journeys and perspectives. Listeners are inspired to seek knowledge and find wisdom in their own lives. Join this transformative journey as we navigate the depth of human experience.
Terri, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for coming on with us and being able to discuss how you've bridged the inner and outer worlds with your cowgirl shamanistic spirit, and probably much more than that we're going to dive into. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here.
I am really curious. We talk about, this inner and outer reality and the fact that we live in two worlds, inner and outer, and we rarely bridge those two. And now in these coming years, and especially during this period post-COVID, it feels like those worlds are bridging for many. And so we're attempting to create some conversations that help others feel a little safer and secure in their own nuances in that. So where did you first, I know you've been really in touch, and you're not only the shaman, you're a sensitive, intuitive, medium at times, and probably quite rare in that instance. And how did you first get in touch with your inner awareness, the interconnectedness, and what was that like?
It was really bizarre, but in 1990, I was doing a horseback therapy program with disabled kids. And I picked a kid up out of his wheelchair and I put him on the back of one of my horses. And he looked at me and said, "Ouch, I have a cramp in my hip." Well, if you've ever worked with CP kids, that's pretty normal. So I looked at him and I said, "Here, sit this way. It'll take the cramp out." And he said, "Hey, you can hear me." I said, "Well, of course I can hear you." It didn't dawn on me at the time that he was completely nonverbal. So we went about doing our thing. We were doing vaulting, which is gymnastics on horseback. So you can use the whole horse as a therapy tool.
Sure.
And him and I were talking about the school play and his little girlfriend and all kinds of things that had nothing to do with the horseback therapy program. So when we were done, I took him off the horse and put him back in his wheelchair, and he went back to class because we actually did the program at the schools. And the gal that was helping me, she just looked at me. She said, "Boy, he's sure talking great." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, he's very bright. Just because he has CP doesn't necessarily mean he has any cognitive issues." And she said, "Terri, he didn't say a word. He can't, remember? And if I was a horse, I would have done a buck, fart, snort all at the same time, because when they're spooked,
Sure.
That's what they do. It's called a buck, fart, snort." And
Yeah, I've
I
been.
know I heard him. And she said, "I know you heard him." So I went into the classroom and they put a band around his head that had a pointer attached to it. And he had typed out on his computer, "Horse lady can hear me." They didn't remember my name, but they knew that I was the horse lady. So then I stood there totally aware that him and I were having a conversation mentally, totally telepathically. So I went back outside and I told her what had happened in the classroom. And just very matter of fact, she said, "Well, you ought to learn to communicate with the horses because all animals are telepathic. And then wouldn't that make your program really safe?" And I went, "Oh my goodness. Yeah, sure would."
What a great idea, huh?
Yeah, what an idea. So that was back in 1990. So that was my first, what I would call my opening. And there were like no books available at the time on how to do this. There was like Pete Sanders' book, "You Are Psychic," which I hate that word. And then there was Henry Blake's book, "Talking with Horses," that really talked more about body language. It wasn't about, saying they're telepathic. And then there was another gal's book called Animal Talk. But but there was no method to teach you how to do it in that book. I just kept scratching my head going, this doesn't make any sense.
Well,
So
let's try this. Well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Right?
exactly. Nobody gets the most important part about learning this, which is the timing. Nobody gets it. And I don't know anybody that teaches it. But it's as you're starting to form a mental question to guides, to dead people, to animals, it's all the same. As you're just starting, you've got the answer that fast. And so that's why people miss
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. It's funny, we got 70,000 thoughts a day. And according to the Urantia book, the speed of thought is 841 trillion miles per second. So that's
I believe
right.
that.
That's even faster than the snap.
Right.
And, as you're talking about this, it took me back to my college days. And when I got blown open psychically, I agree, not the best term, um,
Intuitively.
intuitively, highly sensitively.
Right.
And I was working in the cafeteria, and I was walking back from the cafeteria to my dorm. And as I passed by students, I could hear you, rah, 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 you, rah, 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 all of these self-deprecating rants, starting with
Sure.
you. And I thought they were all talking to me. And I'm
Oh
doing
my
this stuff,
goodness.
not realizing what was happening. I'm 18, right? And
Sure.
so I go back to my dorm room and lock myself in for a couple of days. Don't come
Oh
out because
geez.
I have no idea what's going on. And then a friend of mine who had been very helpful previous shows up, said, "Where you been?" And I told him what happened. And he says, "Well, was that your voice or others?" And I realized it was others. I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Not
And
about you.
then it was amazing. And so he and I and another woman worked together for the rest of that year, developing these abilities and
Sure.
getting others around campus to gather, and we would experiment. The following year, he was gone. It was 2,000 miles up into Canada. I was in Muncie, Indiana, and this woman was in Santa Barbara at a Krishna camp, unbeknownst to us. So he's supposed to come back for winter quarter. Don't know where she's at. I meditate one evening. I go into that zone, picture his
Sure.
face, look into his eyes, and I grab his shoulders and stand him up inside my vision, right?
Sure.
And we talk, and I see Carolyn come into it. And so we have this conversation throughout the duration of the song I was listening to. And at the end of it, I come back. Following week, I call his parents' house to check on him to see when he was going to be there. And he answers the phone out of breath. And I said, "Dude, where you been?" He said, "Tell you the truth, I just got here, knew that was you on the phone, ran in to answer it."
Oh,
Cool.
isn't that cool?
So a week and a half later, he got a postcard from Carolyn, and the only thing it had on it besides his address was "enjoyed the conversation."
Oh my goodness. That's so great. That's wonderful.
So being aware of these things young, often, it's still it's tough to deal with. You talk to people about them, and there's, like you were saying, there's no books, there's no people, there's no process. What are you going to do? Well, you just kind of got to live with it for a while and hope
Right.
that somebody shows up that can give you some guidance, or at least will listen to you without judgment.
Well, this is why I wrote 3 books on how to do this. It's really important. And I'm working on my 4th. And I wrote
We
these
will
three
include
books.
those in the description below.
Right. And you can get them on my website too. But I wanted to teach people how to do this. So the first one is just fun. It's how I got in this trouble and how I learned to do it. And it just does a little bit of everything that I do. And even some funny, silly stuff that I started doing early on, like going to conventions dressed as a gypsy fortune teller. And really fun, silly stuff.
But did you have this childlike energy that you carry in doing that? Did you have much happen that gave you some prep up through your childhood?
None. Oh no, I had a horrible childhood. Oh,
Hmm.
I mean, really, I should have turned out to be a drug addict, alcoholic hooker for what I went through. Seriously.
Okay.
And the
Oh,
horses
a lot of
saved me.
strength.
The horses are what saved me because if you have horses, you have to have a schedule, you have to have income, you have to take care of them. You're totally responsible for them, and you got
Right.
to take care of yourself in order to take care of them. So from early on, I had to have horses. And they really kept me on the straight and narrow through my whole life. They really have.
So what I'm hearing you say is that that regimen, that
Yeah.
habitual, almost ritualistic behavior during the
Yes.
day that kept you on schedule gave you something to pour your energy into and keep you focused and um, safe and secure
Plus, the other thing is,
for the most part.
riding is my nirvana. I mean, I have to be on a horse.
There's
I
nothing
just, I
like
just
being
had my
on one.
I had my hip done in end of July, and I was back on
Mm,
second week in September. And it's you just throw your leg over, and your body just goes. Ah. It's just a feeling that if you've ridden your whole life, you just know it. It's just your legs just wrap around the horse, and your butt gets tucked under, and your shoulders go back, and it's just pure heaven. I can't. Oh my God, it's just incredible. So
I
I
can
have to
totally relate
ride.
to it.
Yeah.
My early girlfriend in high school, her parents had the first and second place quarter horses in the QRA, barrel and flag racing.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I got the chance to help. Um, I didn't really train them, but I rode them quite a bit.
Oh, that's so fun. You see, you know
Wow,
what
it
I'm
was
talking
fun.
about. There's just a feel to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
there's that immense connection.
yeah. Well, a horse's, these people don't realize this, a horse's heart chakra and heart energy radiates 4 feet away from their body. So when you're sitting on the horse, you're actually in the heart chakra of the horse,
Mhm.
or I should call it the heart energy, because I think the chakra just goes straight ahead. But so you're in their heart energy even when you're on their back, and you can feel it. It's just incredible.
It is. It sure is. So where did what were the experiences of the gypsy dressed?
Oh, it was just fun. It's just silly. The corporate events, they pay really good, and they want you in costume. And
Sure.
I have no ego in this. So I made up gypsy fortune teller costumes and had my little crystal ball. And what they didn't expect was to do somebody doing real readings. I mean,
Hmm.
one lady walked in and I went, "Oh my God, who died?" And she burst into tears. And I went, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble." So,
Oh,
anyway, so I was able to connect her with her loved ones that had just passed, and she was there for a corporate event. And she walked out and going, "Oh my God, she's amazing." She was telling everybody, "She's amazing, she's amazing."
it's interesting. You mentioned this, that there, as you are aware, there's really no veils, right? It's
No,
just because of attention and your allowance of it
sure.
actually happening.
Yeah.
Um, being able to picture somebody's face, look into their eyes. That's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
what you need to do, and unless you don't need to do that even because you've been
No,
with someone for years.
no. The remote viewing is fun too. I find lost pets using remote viewing and map dowsing. So I've
Hmm.
even developed that because somebody said, "Hey, can you look and take a look at this house I'm looking at buying?" Sure. What's the address? And I just go there in my mind, and I tell them if they've got foundation issues, or leaky windows, or mold under the sink, or mold in the bathroom, and I get all this stuff. And I've had people call me to do a reading on a property and go, no, 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 this is a money pit. Why? Go down the basement and look at the northwest corner, and you're going to see there's a huge crack where the foundation has shifted really badly. And they go, how are you doing this? It's like, "Well, I'm there. I'm looking at it." So I love doing the remote viewing stuff. It's amazing.
Now, it's funny and it's amazing that you developed it as you have. And it's happened because you've allowed it to. You paid
Sure.
attention, you developed the discipline and the belief, not really belief, just the knowing that
Yeah,
it's
everything's
there.
possible.
And
Yeah,
quantum physics now is saying, okay, there's no matter, it's all energy.
right.
And so it's all about the point of awareness that we have, kind of like Castaneda stuff with Don Juan, right?
Yes.
That assemblage point
Yeah.
that we can shift and throw anywhere.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. I think the hardest thing for me is hearing people's thoughts, just like what you went through. And
Right, because
especially when
most
I
of
was,
them, oh my gosh.
yeah, really. And especially when I was single and dating, it was just awful, because you'd show up and, oh my God, she's fat. Well, okay, I'm going home. I'm leaving,
Right.
because I already told you I was. You didn't believe me. So that was hard. That was really hard.
So where do you think we can go with this? Because as we're moving into this new time, let's say, the age of Aquarius, all the calendars are indicating it, all the prophecies indicate it. So why aren't we listening and paying attention to it?
Well, I think,
Um,
Zen, I think it comes down to fear. We're either living in love or we're living in fear. And media is so focused on fear producing information. It's terrifying. And so I think people just get wrapped up in that fear instead of thinking about um, their own gratitude and how
mhm.
great their own life is. And if their life isn't great, manifesting it so it is great. They just think they don't have any power.
Well, you
And so
touched
I
on a
think
key word,
yeah,
gratitude.
yeah. To me, it's one of the most powerful things you can do, because there's a line in the book, The Science of Getting Rich, in the summary, and that's by Wallace Wattles.
Yes.
And and there's a line in there that says gratitude unifies the mind of man with the, I want to use the word energy of source,
Mhm.
so that man's thoughts are received by the formless. And that one is just like in my freaking face. Do you know what I mean? It's what I
Oh,
think about all the
absolutely.
time.
Well, when I had my awakening as a teenager, the first thing that really made sense to me and corroborated my experience was the Vedas. And,
Sure.
throughout that, I got the sense of, okay, we're all divine threads connected to source,
Right.
capable of God consciousness. Well, what's
Yes, absolutely.
gratitude? That's that ultimate gratitude,
Yeah.
the awe of acknowledging what is and the incomprehensible magnificence of it.
Yes. Yeah. To me, as I'm going to sleep, I'm doing my gratitude. And as soon as I wake up, I'm doing my gratitude every day. And it starts manifesting in ways you just can't even believe. But it's one of the things I want to do, Zen. I want to teach people how to develop their intuitive abilities, because it makes your life happier, healthier, and more abundant. It just does. And
Absolutely.
and so becoming intuitive, telepathic, it's the same thing. There is even the podcast now. The top podcast is the telepathy tapes,
Hmm.
and I'm hoping to get on there. But I mean, this one's good. Yours is really good too, but that one's the top one. It's even pissing off Joe Rogan. So
Sure.
anyway, but I want to get on that because that's my bailiwick, is communicating with people that can't. And it's just now
Mhm.
starting to come to the forefront that it's even possible. And I've been doing coma communication, Alzheimer's communication, TBI, strokes, and nonverbal autism. I've been doing that communication the whole time, 35 years.
Mhm.
And that's how I started. So I really want to contribute that. I want to let people know what's possible. And it's all well and good to know and understand that autistic people can communicate telepathically, but if you're not a receiver and a transmitter, there's no communication. It's one person with their own thoughts.
I had a friend
So,
that was bipolar that computer programmer wrote encrypted databases for the NSA at one point. So highly developed,
sure,
telepathic, labeled manic depressive. He would get into manic modes and he would seek me out because I'm the only one that could hear him and bring
jeez.
him back into it. And those kinds of things. It's amazing to be able to help people like that.
Yeah.
And at the
And
same
truly,
time, there's others around you going, well, why are you wasting your time with those people?
yeah, but
Right?
the big thing is, I really want to tell people about energy healing.
Yeah.
We're 99% energy, we're only 1% physical.
Well,
So,
I said that to Dr. Laszlo, and he said, I would say we are 100% energy.
well, I think
And
we have to give a little bit of credit for the shell we live in. It's a 1%. It's a little meat suit we're running around in,
Yes,
right?
I understand that, and it appears like that to us, but is it really? Because when you are able to move in the ways that we do, that's non-physical, and you know, um, so there's that question. Anyway,
Right.
I will acquiesce to the 1% because we have things that appear to be solid.
Yes, and the sad part is all of allopathic medicine is focused on just that freaking 1%. That makes no
Mhm.
sense.
Symptoms.
Yeah, and people don't understand that stuck negative emotions are what cause disease. Look at all the billions and billions of dollars that are spent on supplements, the right food, cleansing diets, all that stuff. And to me, the only thing, I mean, as long as you're not drinking Drano, you're okay. And the big thing is it's just a matter of getting rid of all the stuck negative emotions. It's issues in the tissues.
Exactly. Great phrase.
Yes, and energy
Or
healing
is it
can
issues or
cure it.
ish me's?
Say again.
Is it ish yous or ish me's?
I don't know. But I just know it's made a huge difference in my life. And my sister was diagnosed with lymphoma and given 6 months to live. And you can't work on your family members, so I sent her to a healer I know in San Diego, and she had one session with him, and it was gone. And that's over 20 years ago.
Hmm.
They had another scan. Her doctor said, "What the hell did you do?" And she tried to describe what she went through, and the doctor was like, no. And she was fine.
Again,
They had
that
to
God consciousness that becomes present, that
yes,
in that perfect love, there is no fear, and the
right.
fear is what condenses that energy into disturbance or dis-ease.
Exactly. I love to phrase it that way, dis-ease. And you know what's really funny, Zen? I've, after doing this for 35 years, I want to say it's all the same freaking thing. Dis-ease is disempowerment
Right.
because we're born powerful. We've just come from source energy. We know we're here to create because that's the mission of the creator is
Mhm.
to create.
And the universe
And
is highly intelligent.
yes. And so what we create is whatever blows our skirt up, whatever makes us happy, whatever is
Yeah,
our passion.
absolutely. A good friend of mine, Jose Arguelles, brought out the Mayan calendar years ago, and in that progression through uh, solstice of 2012, there's this big hoopla of, at least for some, world's going to end, kind of like Y2K, right? Only it's not a world-ending thing; it's a transformation, and
Sure,
in that, so Jose puts it in that there's this 50-year window between the transition of ages, between the Piscean and the Aquarian age. You being an Aquarian, you're kind of hip to this already. So in that process, up to the apex, which was 2012, there was an escalation of awareness, of consciousness, of all of those kinds of things. It was in books, tapes, music, TV shows, obvious
sure,
that it was taking place. So then what? So after we've all got this new awareness, we carry it with us.
sure.
It dissipates around us, and those things that aren't congruent rise to the surface everywhere in order to be addressed, changed, reformed, transmuted,
Released.
all of those kinds of things.
Sure.
Absolutely. And
You
so
know what?
that's
You know
kind of the
what's
period we're in right now in prep to move into this next period where people start working together collectively and they don't just talk about it. Because a
right.
lot of times the collaborations are, oh yeah, I want you to collaborate with me, which means I want you to do what I'm doing and I need your help, but it's got to I want you to collaborate rather than, right? That kind of stuff. Instead of bringing skill sets together and doing what you love together
Sure.
to serve the greater good in some way.
It's so fun when I do readings for people, and that's all I do all day is readings on the phone
Hmm.
all over the world. And oh my God, I just love it. But one of the things that just still amazes me is when I share information with somebody, I can watch their whole energy field shift. And I'll say, "Did you feel that? Did you get goosebumps?" And they go, "How did you know?" And well, that's what I do. But you can watch them, and especially when I do, crossing over readings, mediumship, You
Hmm.
watch them just get lighter. You know,
Right.
when they've had it confirmed that their loved ones are around them, that they see what they're doing, all this wonderful positive stuff, they just release all that negative, low vibration grief, and they feel lighter.
And
It's
you
a
sense it.
physical
This is
transformation.
that, um, we can't think our way through a system built on vibration. We've got to sense our way.
Right, right.
Right? The thinking is what's gotten in the way because it's all above the shoulders. We're not incorporating the body senses. And
Sure.
Native Americans or indigenous in general have a what they call a three brain system, the gut, the heart, and the head. I'm sure you're familiar
That
with
makes a
that.
lot of sense. I'm 4% native. I don't know what kind, but I'm 4%. And I'm
4%.
1%, I'm 1% Congolese. And I want to know why I don't have any of the benefits of that.
Maybe
I
you
don't
do
have
and just
any,
aren't aware of it yet, right?
no rhythm, no soul. No. I should be a better dancer.
Well, maybe you are. Maybe it doesn't have to be in this body. It could be in a body on another plane.
It could
And you're just
be.
dancing away.
Yeah, but that's the genetics. And I just get the biggest kick out of that. I just love it. And I feel like a Heinz 57, which is perfect, just perfect.
Sure. And it is wonderful because we all are, I mean, we're all relatives. We're all
Of
stardust.
course.
We've all come from someplace else, as far as being able to assemble the physicality that we are with that point of awareness that comes in through the creation process or procreation process. And we
Right.
still haven't got to that experience yet. We use the phrase cosmic consciousness. There's all kinds of description of it, but we don't realize that those points of light in it are us.
Yeah, that's the truth. You know what's really interesting? I was in Walmart one time, and I looked at this woman, and that judgmental part came up, and I was just about to think, does not own a full length mirror. That's what I was going to think. Because I thought if she had a full length mirror, there's no way she would have come out dressed like that. And my guide stopped me before I could even finish the thought. And they went, because I'm not allowed to be judgmental. And they said, look. And it was the most bizarre thing because coming from and through her third chakra was a blue cord. That blue cord was connected to everybody in the vicinity. It was just incredible. And as people moved, the cord moved with them. It never disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a life-changing experience. It really was because it showed how we're all connected. I mean, in a very graphic manner. I wish I
Yeah.
could draw what I saw.
Well,
And it's,
there have been similar things in movies. I think What the Bleep had some scenes in it
oh
where
yeah,
those kinds of things
that is
were
great.
shown. And
That
on
was
an
my
energetic level.
that was life changing. Oh my
No
gosh, that
doubt.
movie was life changing. It was
I
incredible.
met William Arnst when they brought it to Tempe here.
Oh, cool.
He was the money and the producer behind it.
That's cool.
Fascinating discussion beforehand, and even more fascinating movie.
Yeah, it's when I get people that are starting to get interested in it, I go watch that movie. Okay, and then watch the sequel.
Hmm.
Watch the sequel too. Because it's almost like they had too much film left over, so they thought they'd do a sequel to it, and it's just as good. Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
it's
and,
incredible.
and it provides, and we see that on screen. How do you think? Oops, there's that word again. What's your sense of how that has affected others and where we may be going as um, society that is now in place and rippling through the thoughtmosphere, if you will.
I think locally, and I mean by that the US, we're in that situation of it has to get worse before it gets better. And I think
Mhm.
that's where we are right now. And I think there's going to be cataclysmic occurrences probably in the next 2 to 3 months. Changes that need to be gone through. And I think it's going to be a huge wake up call for a lot of people who enjoyed, I'm going to say it this way, enjoyed their ignorance and prejudice and racism. They enjoyed it,
They do,
believing that it
because they
was
think it's
right.
okay.
Pardon?
They do enjoy it because they think it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's gonna be a big wake up call for a lot of people. I think there's going to be big changes. And I think it's sort of going to be like a cleansing. And then it's going to take a while to sort of pick up all the pieces. And I don't do predictions, but I have just a quiet confidence from my guides to not worry about what's going on,
I
that it's
don't
going to
think
be
you have to
okay.
do predictions to see patterns and processes and understand the flow of where they are going to go if they're not addressed.
Well, I don't believe in doing predictions for my clients. You know, sometimes I'll get
Mhm.
them for me, but I won't do them for my clients because of the law of attraction. You know, the law of attraction states what
Absolutely.
you think about, you bring about.
Right.
And so if somebody's working really hard at something, I mean, really working hard to make something happen, and I do a reading for them and I tell them, oh yes, absolutely, I see that coming to fruition. Well, they may say, well, Terri said it was going to happen, so I can quit busting my hump for it. I'm just going to
Yeah.
relax and let it
Can't
let
do
it
that.
happen. Well, then it's not going to happen because and then if I see somebody, you know, in trouble and I go, oh my goodness, when you're in traffic, stay away from white vans. Their fixation on staying away from white vans would make them have an accident with a white van.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Totally
you
agree with
can't,
you. I've seen it happen over and over
yeah,
again.
yes. So you can't do predictions for good stuff and you can't do
Yeah.
predictions for bad stuff. You can't.
No, you can say, okay, here's the playing field that you have with
True.
what's transpiring. Where do you want to be in it?
Right. That's what I do is I really get great guidance. My guides are so fun. Oh my God, they're so fun. I have
Sixth
a
sense of
get
humor too, right?
oh well, they have to because I think our guides are an energetic manifestation of parts of our personality that are directly connected to source. That's what I think.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Isn't
Now,
that a
there
weird?
are also, and maybe you haven't heard, let me add this, and you may not have heard about it because I've studied all kinds of stuff and know more than I ought to. Um, and then I have moments of those pauses when I have to pull a file out, right? So there's a thing called the multiplane awareness that William Swigard developed in the 1950s. And what it is a process that a facilitator takes a participant through 9 planes of consciousness and integrates your body on each of those planes, and then goes beyond it to show that, yes, there's more, and then brings you back in. You drop the bodies off, you come back into your body. I got to the end of it, got the prompt to get ready to come back, came back, had a party in my room for a while before I realized what was going on. That was tough to take. Then 20 years later, I run into Edward Close and Vernon Neppy, who wrote a theory of everything quantum physics paper about the triadic dimensional distinction vortical paradigm.
Oh
A
my
mouthful,
God.
right? It was like, come on,
That's too much
can you
for
create something any longer?
that's too much for a
Essentially,
Nevada cowgirl.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The essence of it is they posit that consciousness, space, and time are tethered across 9 dimensions for the human experience, which echoes what I experienced in that multiplane awareness
I
technique.
would not
So
argue with that. I really think that that has validity.
it seems to, because now you've got science backing up the experience, at least in some way. So
Right.
there's this opportunity that we have to recognize that, oh, okay, we are connected. There's other levels and they get finer and finer, purer and purer. And just what are we going to let through in the purest state possible? Which comes into that, okay, we have a design, we have a perfected form, fit, and function in the world. What is it? Are we curious? Mission, purpose, why am I here? Who am I?
Right.
All these kinds of questions.
So many people, they want to have a reading just for that. What is my purpose? And when you go back and you go, whatever you want it to be. No, no,
Exactly.
no. There's got to be something divine. No, you're divine. So it's really fun.
Right. There are signposts, there are breadcrumbs with skill set development and
Sure,
things that we go through in life and experience that then lead us to that point where we're reflecting, harvesting our past rather than dragging it with us and go, okay, what did I learn and how can I apply it?
sure. Yeah. I'm having so much fun doing this work. And this is never something that I would have chosen for myself.
Oh yeah,
Never.
we never totally.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to make my living with horses. And I've been doing that my whole life. But now I do readings on horses, which, oh my goodness, it's just so much fun to do. And they're so specific and detailed on what they share. If I have a TV show, it should be called I Can't Make This Stuff Up, but use the other S word.
I know you can't. You
No,
can't script this stuff.
no,
It's
it's
just
just too
so
bizarre.
bizarre, weird, spooky, cool.
Yes,
Right? And so it
all of
brings
that.
in that the idea that Einstein presented with quantum entanglement.
Yep, yep, it's all
We
good.
are entangled.
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes to realize all of that stuff when you're just going out to clean stalls. You know what I mean? But that's my contemplation time
Sure.
is to and I do gratitude even when I'm out there because if there's manure, it means there's a horse nearby and it's mine. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah. How do you begin to help another who's just beginning to understand or had some experiences of weird stuff, right? For lack
Oh,
of
I
better.
love doing that because most of the time they think they're crazy.
Mhm.
They think their cheese done fell off their cracker.
And
And
everybody's telling them so.
yeah, I think a lot of people that are in psych wards have walk-ins, that there's a spirit of somebody that passed that's walked into them to remain in the physical plane. And I think, can we go through there and see who's feeling that experience, that they feel like they're not themselves anymore? I think
Hmm.
that would be fascinating. So the big thing is to teach people this is totally normal. And if you're a functioning human being, you sleep, you eat, you get dressed, you hold a job, you're healthy, you do all these healthy things, you do the right things, you pay your bills. If you're a functioning adult, you're fine. And so what goes on in your head, that's fine too.
Right.
But when they realize, I mean, I've had people say, well, Terry, I don't know what to do. I'm hearing voices. And I go, yeah. Well, what do I do? Well, what are they telling you? And I said, as long as it's good, happy, positive stuff, do it. I said, if you start hearing negative stuff, then you need psychiatric help. If they're telling you to kill people or wreck stuff, then you need psychiatric help. If it's happy, fun stuff, oh my goodness, I
Hmm.
love it. I want one of those T-shirts that says "You're just jealous because the voices are talking to me." I need to have one of those because that's really it. And they're 24/7 with me, always telling me what to do. Sometimes I get a little tired. I go, "Can I take a break now?"
Yeah, just give me a break, guys. I got to go potty, right?
No, just
Um,
I just need a nap. I haven't had
right.
a nap. I need to take a nap.
Now you
So
mentioned the functionality, and I am in full agreement with that because if you're not functional, that's the essence of self-love, right?
yes,
To be in that functional position where you manage yourself well.
yes, take care of yourself.
Now,
It's step one.
in this new time and these new opportunities, challenges that we have with diversity and inclusion, which include the neurodiverse, and we were
Yes,
talking about the autistic and the CP kids, and all of these things that have been shoved aside for far too long. And a lot of these, especially highly functioning autistics, are brilliant. They have so much to offer.
And
And
intuitive and
absolutely.
telepathic. Yeah,
Right. And this is kind of why they are so keep themselves sheltered,
sure.
right? Is because they are so sensitive. They don't want to deal with the bullshit in the public.
Yep.
Right? And
I
I
I
who can
I
blame
look at
them?
those. I look at those funny posts on Facebook, and it's like people don't want to go out because it's too peoply. And
Right.
I don't make eye contact when I go out in public because I otherwise I know everything about somebody,
I
you know,
know.
and I don't want to know that stuff. You know, I don't know what I want to know their butt itches or they're horny or I don't want to know that stuff. And man, if I just make eye contact, boom, I got it. It's like that's creeping me out. So I never make eye contact. And I've had friends like run their shopping cart into me before I pay attention. It's like, oh, it's you. I can look up.
So are there ways though, because understand and appreciate your maintenance of your openness. Are
Yep.
there ways to create filters or
Yep.
an on-off switch in that? And how might one go about exploring that?
You know, it's really funny. I just don't have one. And there must be a little part of me that goes, no, we don't want one. We might miss something. Okay.
I'm
But
just,
I do
yeah,
teach it. I
the
do
curious
teach
kid
it.
never wants to miss anything.
No, I mean, I remember laying in the hall as a young child because I wanted to watch TV, but more so I wanted to hear if my parents were talking about me. And so I would lay in the hall looking at the TV and eavesdropping. Isn't that
Right.
funny? So I never want to miss anything. And I think that's why I don't have an off switch or on switch. I'm on all the time.
So in that, in order to possibly share with the audience for those who would like to shut it off occasionally, because we can, right? We
Sure.
can create that shift in assemblage point to where our point of awareness is, however you want to call that, where our
Right.
attention is. How would one go about recognizing or at least exploring the ability to manage their own gift better?
Well, let's call it a skill because we know it's a skill.
Mm.
People come up with all kinds of things like pull one earlobe for on, one earlobe for the other earlobe for off, wearing a rubber band around their wrist and they snap it to turn on and snap it to turn off, turning their wedding ring, um, turning their watch. You know, people have been able to develop all kinds of ways of turning it off and on.
So
And it's really
what I hear from that though is that those things are triggers to shift your focus of attention
yes,
from
absolutely.
outside to doing something with your body that attracts attention that gets you to
Right.
break that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Easy peasy. But I think I don't want it. Otherwise, I would have it or find it, you know. But
Sure.
but my
Well, you've
big
grown
thing
up,
is
you find it fun and exciting and valuable. So why would you want to push
right.
it away?
Well, I'm kind of a busybody. You know, in Yiddish we call it a yenta. I'm kind of a yenta.
Yeah.
I want to know everybody's business, you know. But um,
Well,
I
there's
think
transparency too, because
sure,
in that energy, there's no barriers, boundaries, or anything. It's
nope.
transparent as all get out, and those with the eyes to see and the ears to hear will.
But the other thing too that I do, I'm very careful about, Zen. I would never ambush somebody in a public place with a reading. Never. It's so freaking unethical. You
Well,
don't
yeah,
know
that's
if
just so irresponsible.
yes, and we see people on TV doing that all the time. They shouldn't. We don't
Well,
know how susceptible somebody's going to be or receptive they're going to be to the information that we're going to give them. And
sure.
sometimes they may not be ready for it.
So there's two words that come up for me for that: compassion and empathy.
How about ethics?
Well, that too, but without because if there's no compassion or empathy for the
Right.
other, you have the sense that's because that's your skill, that's what's there. What you do with it how you do what you do with it is the objective of being compassionate,
Yes.
empathetic, mindful
Yes.
of when and where that takes place, because it's like, that
When it's appropriate.
it's, yes, exactly. And how do we develop consideration for others when our society doesn't teach that?
No, they don't. No. So it's just very important to remember, I'm being bombarded with information 24/7. And that's why if I don't make eye contact, I'm pretty much okay.
Hmm.
But if I make eye contact, sometimes it's like because it's that powerful of what I'm getting on that person.
Sure.
And I have to be, very cognizant of the fact that even though I've just gotten something monumental, I am not the dog and pony show. And I'm not looking for
Good
attention.
distinction.
I'm not looking for attention from that person. I have to come to all of this information as a healer, as a healing facilitator, because the only healing that happens is when people heal themselves, right?
Right.
So you just have to be aware that it's, when you have mediums, especially TV mediums, it's all about them. It really is. And it shouldn't be. It should be about helping and healing their clients. That's what's more important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, in this concern that we have for the development and support and invitation to be vulnerable for others, because that's kind of where it has to be, right? Would you say
Oh,
that
sure.
that state of vulnerability gives us that it's where um, courage is fear that said its prayers, right? Um, how would this be advantageous in helping relationships, workforces, work groups, partnerships, communities? What would you see the advantages of that?
I think the biggest thing is you become a human lie detector. So people that want to get away with stuff with you're going to know that when they're not telling the truth. That to
Mhm.
me is the biggest thing. And it's so funny. My husband tries stuff all the time. And I go, no, that's not what happened. He still tries to get away with it. And it's like, no, honey, try again. Because that's not the truth. So why try? Do you know what
Right.
I do for a living? I mean, that's what I tell him. But he still tries to get away with it. But it stops all of the BS in relationships when you develop your intuitive ability. Nobody can get away with anything. They
Sure.
can't
Sure.
because you're going to call them on it. And there's lots of times I don't call people on stuff, but I know what the truth is. And
You sense
I
it
think
again. It's a vibration that you can
yes,
sense, and when you feel that constriction, it's like, oh, that's not flowing. There's
no,
something amiss there. Don't know what it
right.
is, but there's
I
not
think when
full transparency, if you will.
absolutely. When people develop these abilities, telepathy and then intuition, which you have to include clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, and claircognizance. And clair just means clear. But
Right.
we have
I call
all
them
of
the
them.
Clairolves, and only your hairdresser would know.
I love that. I call it the Clair sisters because
Right.
clair means
Okay.
clear. So
Yeah.
clear seeing, clear feeling, clear hearing, clear knowing. We all have all of it. And somebody else said there was another one that was like clear smelling and clear tasting, which I have that too. But sometimes I don't want that, especially when somebody says, "Does my dog like going out to my friend's ranch?" It's like, "Oh no,
Right. Well,
he
it's like
loves going, but he
multiple
eats cow poop."
intelligences, right?
What?
With Gardner's work, and there's, I think, 8, 9 of them now, and we all have them, just like the auditory, kinesthetic, and visual learners. There are these 8 or 9 multiple intelligences that we use in
Sure.
our learning process. This is
Yeah,
kind of the same,
it
right?
is.
Where we have some that we have greater affinity for or ability with,
Right.
and then we're able to manage the rest of them accordingly.
But it just, when we have this ability, it really knowing the truth in every fiber of your being is an incredible skill. I mean, it's an incredible skill. And it's one of the biggest things that I share with my clients, especially when I'm teaching them how to do this in one of my workshops or private workshops, because the truth is the most important thing. It just is. Because everything
Normally,
flows from that.
now in your experience, I know you've been outside the corporate realm, so even though you go inside them for the events and things like that, those that realm, that kind of person isn't around long in most cases.
No,
Doing the
no,
right, attempting to do the right thing, to be in integrity.
right.
Now, how do you see from your work in corporate events and things like that, do you see this shifting at all? Is it possible that there's maybe a renaissance that's going to be taking place in the business community soon?
I think the more people that accept these abilities as just abilities, not gifts, or they're not
Mhm.
special, I think the more people incorporate it into their life, the more empowered they're going to be. That's a big thing. You're not going to let people walk all over you,
Right.
and I think it's really important. Plus, the other big thing, it's huge. The one thing we feel like we don't have any control over is our freaking health. When you get sick, when you hurt something, when you need a surgery, it's almost like there's no explanation. It's like shit happens,
Right.
and that's not true. It's you manifested that dis-ease, because you have disempowerment. I mean, it
I,
really is that simple. And this is why I
my
really encourage a lot of people to do energy healing, because it's something that they can learn and something they can do for themselves. And oh my God, it's free, and
right,
nobody has
right.
to get paid to do
One
it.
thing I wish my birth mother would. I met my birth mother at 61. My wife got me the Ancestry subscription for our
Oh,
first Christmas,
cool.
and she popped in, or actually my half sister did it in January of 2019. So I met mom, found out that she was in remission of 4 different types of cancer, and I was the last thing on her bucket list.
Oh my goodness.
She had not told her family about me at all until she was with her mother and her mother was dying. She was 104 or 5 at the time.
Oh
And
my
she
goodness.
blurted out something about me in front of the rest of the family. And so now she had to come clean, right? So uh, that kind of dis-ease of suppressing that, it's going to manifest in different
That's
ways in
right.
your body because you're not
That,
dealing with it.
no, that's probably why she had cancer.
That's my opinion. Um, and it's like Dad told me, Piscean, my adoptive father, he said, it doesn't matter what you tell me as long as it's the truth.
Right.
We can deal with the truth and nothing else matters. Figuratively speaking, right? As long
Right.
as we know the truth, then we can deal with things up front and not have
Yes.
to worry about what we said, who did what, covering up things. That it doesn't matter. Not going to judge you. They were my adoptive parents really taught me about unconditional love.
That's amazing. That was such a huge blessing for you.
Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. And even with my spiritual awakening, they were still a bit concerned and did the best they could knowing what they did and the situation that was happening in rural Indiana in the mid
Sure.
70s, right? There was just not that much awareness, even though Camp Chesterfield was not that far away. It was 15 miles away. You're familiar with Camp Chesterfield?
No, not at all.
You're familiar with Lilydale?
Yes.
Okay, same thing,
Oh my goodness.
only older.
Oh wow.
So basically, this is a community where psychics and mediums and trance channels and all those kinds of folks live together.
Oh my goodness.
And so
Did
it
you go
actually,
there?
I had, but not till later. Um, the gentleman I was telling you about that came and knocked on my door during that experience,
Uh-huh.
he was a groundskeeper there.
Oh my goodness. That's so cool.
So, so those kinds of things, you just never know how things are going to show up, trusting that they will. They do.
Yeah,
And even if you don't
absolutely.
trust,
Right.
you do. You
Yeah.
just have to be aware that, okay, there's a knock on the door, there's a tug, or there's a sensation in your body that's new or different that you haven't felt yet. Well, why is that? Do we inquire?
Yep.
Or do we just shove it aside and go, I'm not going to deal with that right now, which is
I think
usually what's happened.
I think that the surrender is one of the words I love
Mm,
to use. And when I feel myself getting on push or worrying, it's like, hey, surrender, let go, let God. Just you got everything taken care of. Just go with the flow. And that seems to work really well to just sort of get me back where I need to be.
sure. And it, regardless of the name, regardless of the religion, it's all the same source.
Yes, it's
Why
source of
do
all
we
life.
differentiate it in such ways? And granted, best we can do with the information that we have and the ability that those that have gone before us have had to manipulate others to get us to believe in a certain thing or way with
Right.
without being open and experiencing that unconditional love. And would you agree that at our core, really all we desire in life is to love and be loved?
Absolutely. No argument from me. It really is all about that. And
How do
then
we
just
bring
trying,
that out more? How do we bring that conversation into a living awareness?
in a lot of the clients that I work with, there's no self-love.
Hmm,
And there's even self-hatred, self-loathing. And of course, that brings up all of the autoimmune diseases,
right.
which they don't realize is an absolute correlation.
Sure.
So when I say, well, you don't love yourself, that's why you have, fibromyalgia. And they're like, what? And the last times I go, you're nuts. And I go, no, here's the deal, Camille. And I tell them, and that, cells respond to emotions. That's been proven time and again.
Hmm.
And so that they have to work on self-love in order to heal their dis-ease. And there's been some pretty miraculous turnarounds on people that have diseases, autoimmune diseases, once they realize it's because of their own thoughts and feelings, and in a lot of cases because of their childhood.
Right. How, and there are way too many. I mean, at one point in the 90s, I think it was, there was a 70% divorce rate in
Yep.
America. That kind of anybody who's been in that situation, that's horrible,
Yep.
regardless of how it happens.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Zen. Maybe you don't realize this. Um, a lot of women prior to the 70s were basically stuck in their marriages because they couldn't get a credit card, they couldn't have their own bank account, they couldn't sign for a loan. It's hard to remember that all of
It's
those
almost hard
little
to believe that we were so short-sighted so short time ago,
right.
or in,
So
right?
so women were basically stuck in unhappy marriages because they couldn't make it on their own, even if they had a job. They still had so many restrictions on just self-empowerment and being able to function as a member of society. There were too many restrictions on them.
Hmm.
So
And they
I
still
think,
are. I mean, look at how we
oh
still
yeah.
buy into a document that says woman came from a man's rib. I mean, that's subservient from the beginning. Why do we
Yeah,
even think that's possible?
right,
And yet, because we want to believe and
right,
trust in someone's expertise, not our own, right? There's that self-love thing, right?
right.
You don't trust yourself. You put your faith and trust in another. Well, that's not what Jesus taught.
No. The big thing about him is he's master healer. He was either doing a healing, going to a healing, or coming from a healing. And
Yep.
he said, all this and more you can do. Well,
Exactly.
some of us have taken that to heart, and others have fallen prey to the whole rigmarole of
Hmm.
control, which is, there's
Well,
only
I'm going to pray
one way to
for
God.
you, right?
There's
They
only
don't.
one way to God.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we
somebody's
are
having
God.
problems. There's an immediate judgment and a prayer for them with some other outcome than whatever's necessary. That's
Right.
black magic without permission.
Right. Right. It's Santa Claus for adults.
Yeah.
It really is.
So how do we shift this into, again, back to these more open conversations about loving and being loved, sensitivity, not that we're getting mamby-pamby, because a lot of the guys will say, that's just woo-woo, touchy-feely stuff. I don't want. Yes, and it's reality.
Yeah.
How do we bring that reality into more awareness so that we can have a better world as a result?
Zen,
What we want.
I think it's coming, and it's going to take a while, but when people start healing themselves through energy healing, they cannot help but raise their own vibration.
Hmm.
And you can also raise your own vibration just through intention. But the more your vibration goes up, the more the stuff that is low vibration and not true has to be released. So
Absolutely.
even belief systems that are not based in truth, they won't serve you anymore. They won't function. They won't help
Hmm.
because they're low vibration brainwashing systems. And so I think the more we raise our vibration, the more those low vibration fear based systems, is what I want to call it, have to
Hmm.
get shed off and left by the wayside.
I totally agree. As you were talking about intention, I thought of Lester Levinson, which you may be familiar with, the Sedona method.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so the Lester Levinson was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he decided he was evidently wealthy. He decided he was going to sit and breathe out all of it and just sit and heal himself. And what he came out of that with was called the Sedona method. And it's basically feeling your feeling, whatever it is in the moment, not denying it, embracing it fully, then taking a breath and allowing it to be released through your solar plexus like a frisbee thrown out into the darkness.
Oh, cool. I like that.
And he lived for another 40 years or something
Oh my
like that.
God.
Right.
That's
And taught
amazing.
this. Bob Crane was an avid supporter of it. The actor that played Hogan in Hogan's
Sure.
Hero. So unfortunately, he had another exit, but still, these things
Sure.
have been demonstrated by others. If one can do it, just like Jesus said, if I can do it, you can do it. Anything I can do, you can do and more. I'm just
Better.
focused on this. You guys
Sure.
got all kinds of different skill sets.
Yeah.
How can
Yeah.
we exercise those skill sets better, in your opinion?
I think it's if each individual understands that they are frequency and vibration and that they're source energy in a meat suit, and through intention or whatever practices work for them to raise their own vibration and to get happy, to develop their intuitive abilities, which help them with a happier, healthier, more abundant life.
Hmm.
And if each individual does that, it has a ripple effect into the creative consciousness and people that are nearby. It's there's been people in my life where I've thought, oh, I just gotta go stand next to them. I want to be in their energy field. And you feel weird. You go, am I gay? No, no, you just like their energy,
No, it's just
I
harmonious and you want to be
know,
around it.
I know. There's been two people in my life that I felt that way about, and I was like, oh, and I need to go stand with them. I still
My
stand
wife and
next
I
to
are
them.
like that. We're
Isn't
together.
that isn't that
Uh,
fun?
oh, it is. We don't need anybody else,
No.
right? We're just happy sitting and talking with each other and being next to each other. And
Yeah,
I've never experienced that before. Um,
that's so
and
cool.
that's been, we got together right before COVID and both our business. She's got a piano studio and
Oh, geez.
I do transformational coaching, and both of our businesses increased during that time as well.
That's
Everybody else,
amazing.
we did not change one thing we were doing. Not one. Well, yeah, we stopped going to a few stores that refused us because we wouldn't wear masks. But
Oh,
yeah, no biggie. Um, in that, there was this, oh, I know, with regard to the energy field, uh, there was a Huna trained shaman woman that I went to a workshop to 89, I think it was, maybe 90. And she would demonstrate the size of the aura to people. And so
oh, cool.
I showed up early, you show up early or stayed late, that's where the magic happens. And so I showed up, it was just her and I, we were in a 40-foot square church auditorium or just a kind of a rec room. And I was asking her, how do you do this? What's going on? Because I was familiar with dowsing rods and knew what they were used for in other ways and realized their value. And she goes, well, here's what I do. She says, I'll show you. So I want you to stand in this corner and I'm going to take you through the past, the future, and the present. And what I want you to do is to go somewhere close your eyes, go into the past, go into an experience and become it. And so then she went to the other corner. So a 40-foot room, probably a 54-foot hypotenuse. And she clears the rod, starts walking towards me, stops where they open, has me open my eyes. We mark the spot. She has me go into the future, do the same thing. Goes and she does the same thing, marks the spot. Then she picks up a rock in the windowsill next to me, puts it in my hand, says, now focus on this. And so I do. She barely gets 2 steps in from the other side of the room. The other two, the future and the past, opened about 6 feet in front of me.
Oh, my goodness.
The present opened up almost 50 feet in front of me.
Oh,
And
my goodness.
with no focus of attention or desire to fully be present. So imagine if someone were trained, the effect that they could have, who knows how wide it might go.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
that's
so cool.
subtle. So those are the kinds of things that we walk with now because of
Sure.
COVID and the self-examination and the centeredness and the stillness and all of this mindfulness stuff that's going on. We've literally changed the atmosphere that we live in on a subtle level.
Absolutely. And more is coming. I mean, that's the coolest thing is more is coming. Anybody that wants energy healing instructions, I'll email them to it because to me, that's my gift to give to people that they can start trying to heal themselves. And that's the most important thing because it's really funny, but I'm not a fan of hands-on healing because if you've got a dis-ease because you've lost your power, if someone lays hands on you, you still don't have your power back.
Right.
But if you work at healing yourself, not only do you have a greater chance of really doing it, but at the same time, you're going to release the negative, low vibration things that made you sick in the first place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like channeling, right? I've heard
Oh, yeah.
a number of channelers. Some of them are clear, some of them aren't. Whatever comes out of your mouth is still filtered through whatever's in your head.
Yes. Yes. It can be very frustrating because all you have is your own perspective. And there's
Right.
some things that fly out of my mouth and I go, I don't even know what that is because I'm just channeling information.
I
It's
know.
really fun.
I totally hip. That
Yeah.
when I mentioned that, we can't think our way through a system built on
No,
vibration. We got a
no.
simpler way through. Those words came out of my mouth one day, just out of nowhere. And Luba says, you need to write it down. That's a gem.
Yes.
And because it's true.
Yeah. My books are channeled. People go, "Oh, I've got writer's block," and I go, "Don't you hear the voices that tell you what to write?" No, they don't. I'm
Well, it's like,
weird.
whether it's voices, sensations, that there's a certain, we have, if we just look at it from an old perspective, an axiom, the
Sure.
five senses and 10% of our brain use, you have 45
Right.
more with the other 90% if you just do a simple ratio. So are those 45 more those five distributed through the nine planes and the
I'm
fine
not going to worry about it.
sensitivity?
I'm just going to keep doing
I
my
know.
work.
These are questions, right?
Sure.
Because you're
And they're
looking
good
for systems,
questions.
correlations, how things fit together, how things
Right.
work, and to be able to ask critical questions without holding on everything's sacred and yet nothing is sacred.
Right. I agree. I agree. This is so much fun to do this work and to watch people's lives change and watch their animals change. I love talking to animals. Oh my goodness,
I
that's so
know.
much fun. And what's really weird, Zen, it's like every time I'm doing a reading on an animal, I end up pivoting to the human and going, can we talk about your grief, or can we talk about your health issue, or whatever else is going on with them? And most of the time they burst into tears and they go, how did you know? And then they go, oh, well, never mind.
Right.
So we end up healing the
Yeah, your
animal.
pet just told me about
Exactly. And we heal the animal and then heal the human at the same time, help
it.
them to heal. They're healing themselves.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. I feel so blessed that I get to do this work.
And the sense, the awe, the support, the love, the nurturing, all of those, the effervescent, iridescent, high-pitched sensation that comes along with that.
Oh my God.
Do
It's
you?
there's sometimes I work late and I don't get done till 8:30, and that's my bedtime.
Mhm.
And I can't go to sleep because I'm just laying there just vibrating like crazy because of the so much energy that I was working with, in the last reading. Oh my goodness. People don't understand that. And they go, didn't you do like 9 readings today? Yeah, I did. Well, why can't you sleep? Well, that's because I did 9 readings today.
Exactly. And that same kind of sensation happens right before an OBE. That's
How
part
so?
of that process. Um, as far as I understand it, in the research that I've done anyway, and what I've noticed for me, there's that, okay, here, you begin to sense and feel it. It's like, oh boy, here it comes. I'm going to go have some fun, right? And you
Yeah.
can't really think about it because that retards the experience.
Yeah,
You're
it
out of
does.
body, you start thinking, you're going to stop back in.
Right. Yeah. It's really funny. The only weird things that happened to me as a child is I did astral projection and scared the crap out of myself. Because I'd be laying in bed thinking I was asleep, and all of a sudden I'm out in space looking around,
Hmm.
and it would be just going, and I couldn't tell, I didn't have the wherewithal to tell my parents what I was experiencing. But that's the only weird thing that happened to me as a child that made me think, well,
Parental advice, that just opened the door, right? For parents who have young children who talk to them or seem like something else is going on, or they're not quite themselves, the guidance, the nurturing, the acceptance of whatever it
yep,
is that they're going through and not wanting to tell them, oh, it's just your imagination, or we're
yeah.
off for something else. Be curious.
I've had lots of experiences with parents that thought their kids were having mental health issues, and they were just seriously intuitive and mediums, and they had the whole gamut of skill set. And it was a matter of teaching them when it was appropriate and when it wasn't. And and it was a matter of teaching them to have boundaries and when you can say things about this and when you have to keep it to yourself, and maybe
Right.
just write it down, that
Well, as kids, we don't have any boundaries, right? We
no,
just blurt shit
no,
out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just really important not to discourage them, not to turn it off, but to allow them to have these abilities, but know when it's appropriate to share them. That's the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah. And that's one of the key features of learning how to navigate is where to set your boundaries.
Yes, absolutely.
And that has to do with the self-love too, because most of that is about setting boundaries. Nope, you can't come in here.
Yes.
Sorry.
Right.
How would you enjoy the opportunity to share something that would be massively significant on a very subtle level in people's lives? What would that be?
I think it's energy healing. I really do. Teaching them that they gave themselves the disease and that they can release it. They're always shocked that I nail, and I'm not saying this from ego, please don't think that, but
Mhm.
being able to nail why they have the disease. I just did
Well,
that with,
confidence is often confused as ego by
yeah, no,
the
I have none.
unaware,
I
right?
have,
So somebody that says, "Oh,
you
you're
can't,
full of yourself," they're usually full of themselves.
right. But you can't have an ego and do this work. You have to be
No,
out of your own way.
no, there's no ego without we go.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that when I'm training my clients, they have a need to be right. And I tell them you can't have a need to be right because
Hmm.
sometimes you're going to be given wrong information and you're going to know it's wrong information, but it's in the best interest of the client to share their wrong information. And I go, no, I don't want to do that. They really want to fight about it. So I just love this. I love helping people. It just, oh my goodness, it's such a good feeling all the time.
It really is. I'm totally hip to that. I've been able to share that at point. I'm operations director for a global peace movement called Live and Let Live. And
Cool.
my wife and I founded the new version of Planetary Citizens to help create ways to explore a holistic system in service delivery of this new order that we're ascending into. Because chaos really, I was had a conversation with a guy named Howard Bloom, and he's not a believer in the second law of thermodynamics. And this has nothing to do with what we're doing, but um, that basically says that systems fall into entropy.
Mm.
You look at the universe, it doesn't fall into entropy. It's
Mm-hmm.
constantly refining into a higher order, just like
Yes,
we are. So
it
why are we
is.
lying to ourselves?
Right. The only thing that stays the same is change,
Yes.
right?
And that's a wonderful wave to surf, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or horse to ride, as the
Yes.
case may be. How do you, or how would you like others to be able to look in the mirror and see themselves for their this coming future?
I think that one of the biggest challenges is to look in a mirror, look into your eyes, and to be able to tell you that you love you unconditionally. The first couple of times I tried it, I would just burst into tears and leave. I could not do it
Hmm.
because I'd been taught that I was never good enough and so many negatives that I had associated with my upbringing. And when I finally got to that point, it's so gratifying. Now I go past a mirror and wink at myself or do
Sure.
the little finger gun and just doing that and seeing where you're at and trying to practice that to where you can get good at it. That can be life changing for people.
Mhm.
Absolutely life changing. Self love.
Absolutely agree. Wow. Gosh, Terry, this has been an amazing conversation.
Well,
And
you ask such good questions, and you have so much to contribute that's just so on point. I mean, it's great.
I thank you.
You're welcome.
Ooh, I had a moment of self-deprecation there that I had to acknowledge and move past, right?
Don't do that.
Um, well, and therein is the example of self-awareness. I caught
Yep.
it. He's like, nope, don't go there. Um, we can look really weird in public when we're doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The point is that we
The,
do it.
the nice thing is, if you have an earbud in and you're talking to yourself, then people assume you're on the phone. It works great.
It does. It does.
And you just do this sign if they try to communicate with you. The phone, I'm on the phone. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Terry, once again, thank you so much for being with us and being so spontaneous in doing so.
Oh,
It's
thank you so
wonderful.
much for having me. It was so much fun. You're really great to work with.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Since you are well, and oh, gosh, love to be around the horses. So
Oh God, yeah. They're just
wonderful.
amazing. I've got
And
one
we've
that
just been horsing around today anyway.
I've
And
got
with
one
that,
one of my horses
namaste.
bows.
I'm sorry.
One of my horses bows, and the other horse does zippers, Velcro, and facials. She gives you a facial.
Oh
They're
my
so
God.
silly.
Sweet. Well, namaste and in la catch, and thanks for sticking with us for this episode of One World in a New World. I'm Zen Benefiel, your host, and thanks to Terri Jay for being with us today, and we will see you next time.